We will now invite the Anglican Alliance Program Director, Dr. Elizabeth Perry. She will share about the Climate Change Commission on the Anglican Church of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and Polynesia Advocacy example. So, Elizabeth, welcome.
So I'm going to start thinking about the ocean identity of the region and how fundamental it is to shaping life for especially the island dwellers of the region. So I'd like to share how the Diocese of Polynesia is caring for the ocean through faith and indigenous wisdom, and through climate resilience and practical action, and their work on advocacy. So the Diocese of Polynesia, the wider region, province, begins with a simple but really profound idea, which is, they say, we are the ocean. For Pacific peoples, the ocean is not just a body of water. It's, they say, our highway, our food, our source, our history, our identity, and our future. As Pacific scholar Epeli Hau'ofa wrote, we are the sea, we are the ocean. The ocean is not a barrier that separates islands. It's a bridge that connects through relationships, culture, language, trade, and faith. And I think for me, coming from England and growing up thinking of that part of the world as very remote and very isolated and all these tiny islands, that change in perception from the ocean creating isolation to ocean creating connection has been one of the most profound insights I've received from indigenous people in that part of the world. And this understanding shapes everything the diocese is doing. So their vision. So the province's Climate Change Commission, and it's quite remarkable that they have one at all. I'm not sure many member churches do. Their commission has developed a vision that combines Christian faith, indigenous wisdom, and action. So the Archbishop of Polynesia, Archbishop Sione, describes this as training ocean leaders. The goal is not simply to teach people about climate change. It's to equip communities to become stewards of God's creation and guardians of the moana, or ocean. And the vision recognizes that caring for the ocean is not separate from Christian discipleship. It's part of our calling to love God, to love our neighbor, and to care for creation. Oops. So one of the most beautiful examples of this comes from Tonga. And this concept of whakakongatahi refers to the practice of entering the sea to feel the currents, temperature and movement of the waters. So traditional navigators understood that some things cannot be learned from a distance. You had to enter the water. And the diocese uses this image as a spiritual lesson. So the idea is that rather than standing on the shore observing problems, we are called to immerse ourselves in God's creation, listen deeply, and discern how God is calling us to respond. So ocean stewardship begins with relationship, and that idea of just allowing yourself to be immersed in the water and to actually feel it. So the diocese also honours the extraordinary ecological wisdom held by Pacific peoples. So obviously, long before satellites and modern forecasting systems, communities learned to read the signs of creation. They watched bird migrations. They observed wind currents. They read the season through the behavior of plants and animals. And this knowledge was not separate from spirituality. Creation itself was understood as a teacher. And so the program that the member of the province has developed encourages elders and young people to share knowledge together so that ancient wisdom and contemporary science work side by side. And just as an anecdote, when I've been in that part of the world, some of the stories I've been told are people watch the ants, which reminds me of the psalm that says, go to the ant and watch, because the ants are used, if the ants, they're observed as a way of observing if storms are coming. And the same with frigate birds, which come inland a couple of days before a storm or hurricane is coming. And so people that memory, that knowledge of reading the signs and responding to them, which I think we can all see the signs of our own time. So the next principle is collaboration. And across the Pacific, there's a saying, which is piki piki hamakai vave manava, which means lash our canoes together so life breathes swiftly. So the idea is that a single canoe can struggle in a storm, but several canoes lashed together become stronger and more resilient. And the diocese uses this image churches, communities, ministries, and families together to address environmental challenges. So open stewardship, they believe, is not something any one community can do alone. It requires partnership, solidarity, and shared learning. So the Climate Change Commission highlights some inspiring stories from across their region. So starting with the Tonga one on top right, there's been the No Plastic campaign, which has encouraged communities to reduce single-use plastics and return to reusable traditional alternatives, including making woven bags instead of using plastic bags. Also, across the region, young people are leading mangrove planting and coral gardening and environmental education programs. In the Cook Islands, Marae Moana has become one of the world's largest marine conservation initiatives, combining traditional stewardship practices with modern protection measures. And these stories remind us that caring for creation is not simply an aspiration, it's already happening, and faith communities are making a tangible difference. And before anyone asks these, I do not know the exact contribution of faith and the Church, Anglican Church, to each of these initiatives. However, what I do know is that you'll all know very well that 1.5 is the upper limit of global temperature rise that's allowed for in the Paris agreements. What you might not know is where that target came from, because originally when the Paris Agreement was being negotiated, the number was being argued over, and everyone thought the most likely outcome was going to be 2 degrees of warming, but it was actually came from this region of the world that the 1.5 degree target was established, and that actually started through the Pacific Council of Churches, and in fact through people like Faye and Archbishop Sioni. So Faye, who would have been the speaker this morning, but their insistence that 1.5 should be the target because small island states absolutely can't cope with any more. They built momentum through the Pacific Council of Churches, which went to the region, and the region and small island states took that into the Paris negotiations. So influence much through as churches. We really can. So let me just move on to the next slide. So next little thing I want to tell you about, it's the penultimate thing, is one of the most exciting recent initiatives called Soko ni Nui ni Nui, which means we are the ocean, or Sails of Hope, which, so rather than gathering in a single conference venue, the province decided to develop a journey across communities, and this happened over Eastertide. That's just happened, starting on Easter Sunday and moving through to Pentecost. And over this 50 days, they had a 50-day voyage and journey and program where church leaders and young people and communities gathered in multiple locations. And together they explored open stewardship and common resilience and Christian faith and Indigenous knowledge and practical action. And so what was particularly powerful was the ocean wasn't a subject being studied, it was the classroom, it became the classroom. And participants learned by traveling and listening and worshipping, sharing stories, strengthening relationships with one another and with the moana, the ocean itself. And this is a distinctly Pacific approach to learning and discipleship. And you can find videos about it online, on Facebook. So finally, I want to end where I began, with we are the ocean. The Diocese of Polynesia and the whole province of Aotearoa, New Zealand and Polynesia reminds us that the future of our communities and the future of the ocean are inseparable. And when we care for the ocean, we care for people. And when we protect marine ecosystems, we protect livelihoods and cultures, traditions, future generations. And when we do this together, we participate in God's work of healing and renewing creation. I will end there. Back to you, Dr.